Have you ever noticed something strange? You can forget 10 statistics in a minute, but remember one powerful story for years. A teacher might tell you that millions of people struggle with failure, but when you hear the story of one person who failed again and again and finally succeeded, it stays in your mind forever. Somehow, that single story becomes more powerful than 100 facts. This raises an interesting question. Why do humans love stories more than facts? The answer lies deep inside the way our brains evolved. Thousands of years ago, humans did not learn from textbooks, research papers, or charts. Knowledge was passed down through stories. Around campfires, elders shared stories about dangerous animals, harsh winters, and the mistakes people made while trying to survive. A story about a hunter who ignored the warning signs in the forest and never returned was far more memorable than simply saying, "Be careful in the forest." Stories carried emotion, tension, and meaning. They helped people remember important lessons. Over time, the human brain adapted to absorb information better when it was delivered through storytelling. Even today, our brains respond to stories in a unique way. When we hear a simple fact, only a small part of the brain processes that information, but when we hear a story, multiple parts of the brain activate at once. As the story unfolds, we begin to imagine the scenes. We visualize the environment, the characters, and their emotions. We mentally step into the story. In other words, our brain doesn't just hear a story, it experiences it. That is why stories feel more powerful than plain information. Emotion also plays a major role in this process. Humans remember emotions much more strongly than raw information. Think about your own lesson life for a moment. You may not remember the exact lessons you studied in school many years ago, but you probably remember moments that carried strong emotions. Maybe you remember the excitement of winning something, the embarrassment of making a mistake in front of others, or the inspiration you felt when someone told you a powerful story. These emotional moments stay with us because emotions strengthen memory. Stories are naturally filled with emotion, fear, hope, struggle, and victory, and that emotional layer makes them unforgettable. Stories also create something that facts rarely do: connection. When someone shares a personal story, it allows others to see themselves in that experience. Imagine two people having a conversation. One person says, "Research shows that failure increases the chances of success." That statement may be true, but it feels distant and abstract. Now imagine someone saying, "I failed 3 times before I finally succeeded." Suddenly, the message feels real. It becomes relatable. Stories allow people to connect on a human level, and that connection makes the message far more powerful. This is why the most influential leaders, speakers, writers, and creators rely heavily on storytelling. They understand that facts make people think, but stories make people feel. And human decisions are often driven by emotions more than logic, whether it is a motivational speech, a movie, a book, or a YouTube video. The messages that move people the most are almost always built around stories. A powerful story can inspire action, shift perspectives, and stay in someone's mind long after the details are forgotten. In the end, the human love for stories is not accidental. It is deeply rooted in our history and in the way our brains process the world. Stories help us learn lessons, remember experiences, and connect with one another. Facts may tell us what is true, but stories show us what those truths mean in real life. That is why, even in a world full of data and information, stories remain one of the most powerful ways to communicate an idea. Sometimes, a single story can leave a deeper impact than 1,000 facts ever could.